Hey, welcome to Stone Cold Stros. We're live for episode 16 of season 2. I'm Brandon Strange. I'm joined by Charlie Polillo. Read Charlie's column weekly on sportsmap.com and follow him on X at Polillo. No Josh Jordan today, but you can read Josh's work daily on sportsmap.com and follow him on X at Josh Jordan 975. Just a reminder that the full version of this podcast is always available at your favorite podcast app. And you can show support for the hometown guys in orange by hitting like on this video right now. And you can support our drive to 25 by subscribing to the channel, helping us get one step closer to 25,000 subs. We appreciate everyone who has, because this channel cannot and will not exist without your support. Charlie, another week, another set of mixed results, another kind of mixed bag. Bad. Let's start there. Houston drops the opener to Seattle. Jordan and Abreu still look a little in the weeds with the bats, putting it kindly. Really concerning setbacks for both Jose Urquidy and Christian Javier. The former still on the IL, the latter just put on it. Good news, Ronel Blanco returned from his suspension at the end of the A series, looked as dominant as ever. The Astros have taken advantage of that weaker part of the schedule. The AL West is still a mess, even with Abreu and Jordan slumping. The division is still well within their grasp, dependent on the result of this series, whether they can rally or at least split. We saw Jose Abreu return to the team, which at least for the opener, you can slot in both columns. So we'll dive into the Abreu part and a little bit more in depth later on here, but you've been bullish on saying the Astros have an opportunity to right the ship here because of just the state of the division and because they've been able to tread water even with some of their best guys not hitting. So are you encouraged by the Astros' ability to take advantage of that stretch in spite of the thin depth at pitching and the low production from the guys they really count on? Or are you starting to become concerned that now there's even less margin for error and the worm may turn when competition stiffens back up?
Oh, concern's real that this may just turn out to be not a very good team. 1/3 of their season is complete. They're on pace for 90 losses, 24-30. And while they've somewhat extricated themselves from the 7-19 debacle to start the season, right, 12-24, the most recent point at which they were 12 games under 500. Since then, the record's a winning record, but it's not like they've been playing great baseball and beating one good team after another. The pitching is teetering. Little picture, Framber comes out and he's frazzled Framber in the first inning, touched for 3 runs, settled down, kept him in the ball game. The loose definition of quality start, 3 earned runs in 6 innings is not good. It's a 4.50 earned run average. And he started with a 4.50 ERA. You're looking to replace. But it was a keep the team in the game start. The offense just got shut down by Bryce Miller and a Mariners bullpen that was tight. Look, the Astros suck this year as a come-from-behind team. Now, almost all teams lose almost all their games when they're behind after 8 innings. The Astros are 0-23 when they're behind after 8. More troubling is that they've only won 1 time this season, 1-22, when trailing after 7 innings. They've blown 4 games. They've had the lead after 7 innings. They've only rescued 1 from the fire when down after 7 innings. And the 2 chief culprits continue to be Yordan Alvarez and Alex Bregman. In Bregman's case, so much for the knob ahead of the ball revelation. He's now 4 for his last 40. Check my math. I believe that's an even and ugly 100 batting average. 4 for his last 40. Yordan increasingly perplexing. Over his last 26 games, Yordan Alvarez, 2 home runs, 5 runs batted in, 5 RBI in 26 games. A third of the way through the season, Yordan's on pace to finish with 66 runs batted in. Now, having batted second in the lineup for the majority of the game to this point, obviously that's going to diminish RBI chances. You only have one guy who can get on ahead of you in the first inning, but that's just one at bat. Yordan's been the biggest problem with his RBI production, as he continues to be for hunger with runners in scoring position. Last year, a one-man wrecking crew. Runners in scoring position, Yordan hit .365 last year, OPS over 1,200. So far this season, 8 for 48, batting .167, OPS in the low 500s. The big man, whether batting second, third, or fourth, has been pretty puny so far this season. You throw in Bregman, a disaster, right? He had that 2-game renaissance where he hit the 3 homers over 2 games. Somehow that vaults him back up into the cleanup spot, and he's now back into what is pretty much been a season-long slump. But who do you say on the merit system? Do you move up to the 4 spot? Yainer Diaz has been horrible for over a month. Jeremy Pena's having a very good season, but not much slugging, and he's actually tapered off a little bit himself. John Singleton's been excellent by John Singleton career standards, and compared to Jose Abreu this season, but John Singleton is not a middle-of-the-order type hitter. Do they want to move Jake Myers into that 4 or 5 spot and hope that he can sustain what has been pretty exciting progress so far this season from Jake Myers? And since Jose Altuve is the igniter, he is the engine. Let's mention that Altuve now, for the better part of a month, has been no good himself. Foremost blame to Altuve, who's a total gamer. So, of course, he wants to be in there every day. But his last 19 games, batting .213 with an OPS barely over 500. His last 80 at-bats, he's drawn 2 walks. That's not getting the job done as a table setter. But I do want to say, hey, Joe Espada, you're probably playing Altuve too much. Of course, he never wants to sit, and when you've been scuffling and you've been under 500 the entire season from the first game forward, you never want to pull Altuve, but there is the bigger picture. He started 52 of their 54 games at second base. It's too many. He's 34 years old. I don't know that it was complete coincidence that Altuve, who hadn't had a 2-hit game since May 5th, after the off day Thursday, hey, he had a 3-hit game Friday and then a 2-hit game Sunday. Now, Friday, a couple of them were dink hits. But at 34 years old, with some injury history, you need to be mindful of wear and tear. Players don't become more durable and more sustainable in their mid-30s, at least post-hardcore steroid era of the early 2000s. Right, if Altuve is to fade over the course of the season, I mean, that would be a real nail in the Astros' coffin. But it is now the better part of a month that Altuve has been a bad offensive player, and he's been in there every game except for 1 DH start. 52 out of 54. Dubon should be getting at least 1 start at second base per week. And the way Bregman's been playing and the way Dubon's been playing, Dubon should probably getting at least 1 start per week at third base. Now, 1 loss to Seattle, which is a decent team, and with that pitching, nothing catastrophic about it. I mean, the Astros would get swept in this series. Even that wouldn't be catastrophic, but would be deeply, deeply troubling. The biggest hole they could come out of the series is 7.5 games back. Reminder, June 25th, last season, the Astros awoke 6.5 behind the Rangers. So nearly a month deeper into the schedule, they were facing a deficit. They could be no worse than 1 game further in arrears as this series plays out. But if they get a split and leave Seattle 3.5 back, that's just fine. Lose 3 out of 4, you're 5.5 back. Your chances of winning the division aren't real good at that point, but it's not like they'd be anywhere close to 0.
I can't say I'm as concerned about Altuve just because we've seen this from him throughout his career. He is a very feast and famine, very streaky hitter, and he came out of the gates just, hitting on all cylinders. We knew there'd be some sort of regression. So him scuffling for the better part of a month, that's not unheard of for him. The Bregman thing becomes more and more concerning as the season goes on. More so for him because he's the one cheating himself out of a lot of money right now. He goes from being able to command a big contract on the market to, if this goes on, and I don't expect it to, Alex Bregman's too good of a professional hitter in this league for this to continue, but stranger things have happened. If this continues on this trajectory, then he may be looking at a scenario where it's like a 1 or 2 year prove it deal with a team before he can go out and seek that real big bag that we know that he's looking for. That might ultimately keep him with the Astros a bit longer, which would be good, I think, for the hometown team and the fans. But also, I don't know if there's going to be as much fervor to bring him back if he continues out the season like this. So it's a 6 of one, half a dozen of the other thing. and then on the pitching side, I tease this a little bit. The good news was Blanco came back. We did not expect Ronel Blanco to be a critical piece of this rotation this year. And it's pretty incredible the fact that now you look at him as one of your stoppers and one of the guys who you really count on to be a guy to go out there and perform. You could have, on no planet could you have predicted that last year or even at the beginning of the season, but he's been great for you. There was some concern once he got caught with the sticky stuff, with the rosin on the glove, that there'd be some sort of regression, but he came back again at the end of that A series, looked every bit as good. And even more encouraging than that was after the incident with the sticky stuff, and after, there has been no fluctuation in his spin, so there doesn't seem to be any funny business going on. He's not getting some sort of unfair advantage with sticky stuff. And by all accounts, this was just an unfortunate circumstance that may have inadvertently gotten him some time. You talk about rest. Ronel Blanco is pitching more than he's ever pitched in his career, so maybe that gives him some inadvertent rest. That's a thing you pointed out when we had a conversation earlier. So Charlie, but the big headline that we're burying here is that the Astros were waiting for Jose Urquidy to come back and waiting for Christian Javier to return to form. Christian Javier now on the 15-day IL. Jose Urquidy experienced forearm discomfort in his last start in the minors. Both of those gents are headed to get imaging. We won't know the results of that during this recording, but it doesn't look good. I mean, you never want to hear forearm discomfort from pitchers. Blanco has looked good. Fromber has been up and down all season. And, who knows whether you get Lance McCullers back? Who knows what Luis Garcia looks like when he returns? Do the Astros have enough depth here without getting one of these guys back? Like I assume you can't lose Christian Javier for the season. But do they have enough depth to continue to compete and to hope to vie for a playoff spot?
Stop me if you've heard this before. Actually, let me finish it off. All right. The three biggest rules of real estate: location, location, location. In the American League West, of course, the Astros still have a shot. Of course, they have the components of a rotation that could win this division. Now, the Seattle Mariners starting rotation is way better than the Astros rotation. Much better depth to it. Their bullpen's excellent. They have a closer on a real good contract. Josh Hader's a real good closer on a ridiculous contract. The Mariners have much more financial flexibility if they want to go add a couple of bats. Right, Seattle's pitching is way better than the Astros pitching, but the Mariners offense stinks. Right, that's why they're in first place at 29-26, as opposed to having stretched it out when every other team in the division has a losing record. Right? It's not as if the Texas Rangers are about to get it all together with their pitching staff and go on to win 95 wins. The Mariners are on pace for 86, 87 wins to win the division. It's not going to be easy for the Astros to get to even 87, but that's within play. If they had to win 95 games to win this division, it would be over. The Astros are in the American League East. They'd be dead. They're not catching both the Yankees and the Orioles. They were in the National League East. They're not catching the Phillies and the Braves, even with Acuna Jr. and Spencer Strider lost for the year. They're in the National League West. They wouldn't be catching the Dodgers. If they were in the National League Central, pretty dicey that they'd be able to make a real run at the Brewers. And then there's the American League Central, the surprise team positively of the year. The Astros would be 12 games behind the Cleveland Guardians. Pretty much dead to rights. Location, location, location. They're not in any of those divisions. They're in the worst division in baseball. The rules dictate somebody has to win it, and that could still well be the Astros. But the starting rotation, that rubber band is really getting stretched. Verlander absolutely has to stay healthy. He'll make a start on 4 days rest in this series because the alternative was to put Eric Lauer into the rotation just days after being released by the Pirates. The Astros sign him off the street. You do not want a regular diet of Verlander at 41 years of age on 4 days rest. Made very few starts on 4 days rest last season, just one so far this season. Under these circumstances, it's okay, but it needs to be the exception, not the rule. But if you have a healthy, not 2022 Justin Verlander, but just a good, solid front of the rotation starter, along with Fromber, even erratic, he'll eat some innings, and you think overall at least be competent. He pitches to a 360 earned run average. That's playable if the offense is holding up its end of the bargain. And then you have Blanco. You hope the bubble doesn't burst on him. That's a solid enough 1, 2, 3. But can you hold it together with Arrighetti and Brown needing to be in the rotation? Right? Cross your fingers, find your rabbit's feet, whatever it takes for you on Javier. Because who will be surprised if we hear that Javier has a little date with the Tommy John doctor and his season's over? I really think it was always more hope than expectation that Jose Urquidy would be a good, solid contributor to this team this season. He was not good last season when he was healthy. At best, he's a number 5 starter type guy. And you referenced Garcia and McCullers. Best case scenario, they're 2 months away from being back. So the Astros have a lot of ground to cover, at least to keep dog paddling and will not stay above water when you're 6 games under 500, to at least stay in touch of the Mariners. And is it becoming increasingly incumbent on Dana Brown, even with the Astros' thin farm system, to look to trade for a major league caliber starter, 4th, 5th starter? I'm not talking to go get a 1 or a 2. How much will they cross their fingers and hope they can hold it together after this Mariners series? Twins are a decent ball club, but then they get the Cardinals, who are bad, the Angels, who are worse. The Astros would really have to fall apart, I think, to fall completely out of contention within this division.
That is true. And I guess it's just a matter of you have to just believe that Yordan Alvarez especially is better than this. You have to believe that he's going to fight it, and the numbers dictate that he will eventually go on some sort of tear unless he too is injured. And that's kind of where I always go with Yordan, is when Yordan's not producing, my first suspicion is the guy is injured. And it usually comes out to some sort of thing with the hand or whatever the case is. We haven't seen that. He's just continued to struggle. So by all accounts, he's just struggling from a mechanical standpoint, which again, that's a thing where he can bust out of that. And then all of a sudden this team goes on a run. All of the numbers, if you look at their offensive numbers, they look good, except for the part where they're generating, where they should be generating runs, and they're not generating runs because the timely hitting is not there. You assume that will come if the Astros can continue to get this level of pitching from the guys that they haven't been counting on thus far. You would assume that would be able to be good enough to be competitive in this division, except for you can't count on getting that production from those guys. It's, and not just the pitchers. Look at a guy like Jake Myers, who's absolutely mashing right now. You wouldn't have counted on a guy like that being able to contribute at this level. And he's doing it for you. Granted, I mean, James Click might have had an idea that he could contribute at this level, but from all we've seen from Jake Myers, we haven't really been given any sort of reason to expect post-injury that he would look this way again. He's looking great, flashing leather out in the field. One of the few hits that Houston was able to scratch together against Seattle in the opener, and worst division in baseball, but also produced the last 2 World Series champs. So go figure at baseball, right? Speaking of bats, and speaking of enigmas wrapped in riddles, Jose Abreu makes his return to the team. Now, if we're looking at context clues here, Abreu's return appeared to be more preordained than it was a vote of confidence from the general, or I don't want to say general manager, but the front office. Let's say that. It appeared to be more preordained than a vote of confidence from the front office. Now, regarding his stint in the minors, GM Dana Brown said, quote, "It's not really about the hits. We want to make sure he's getting quality at bats. Sounds like he had a few quality at bats." That sounds both abstract and uncertain. Charlie, what do you make of this whole drama of Abreu getting sent down? We don't hear about any results of him playing. We hear that he's had a couple of games in the backfields in Florida. all of a sudden there's a timeline for him to return. He does a couple of AAA starts, really much ado about nothing. And results wise, boom, back up to the roster, back starting again. What do you make of the situation? Is this, you're less of a fan and more of the objective journalist between the three of us on this podcast. So have you ever seen anything as puzzling as the Jose Abreu situation?
Yeah, this feels like the last chance for gas stop on the interstate before you have to go the rest of the trip and hope you don't run out. As the Astros start the second third of their season, the middle third of their season, well, that means the Astros owe Jose Abreu $13 million more this season and $19.5 million for next season. So whether that's going to ultimately be almost all sunk costs, they're fighting the fight, spitting into the wind, hoping. I mean, to expect Jose Abreu to be back to what he was 3-4 years ago, frankly, would be stupid at 37 after a year and a third of his production or lack thereof. But if he can be anything better than disastrous, I guess that's an upgrade over disastrous, but not an upgrade over what John Singleton has done as a fill-in. Singleton has not been fantastic, but he's been all right. And, I could almost hear Astro Nation groaning when that hard hit ball goes through Abreu in the first inning. Correctly scored a hit, but you're thinking, well, Yuli would have made that play. Singleton might have made that play, and Abreu, it goes right through him. But hey, you know what? Credit to him for a legitimate hard hit RBI single on a 95-mile-per-hour fastball, which he basically had zero chance against early in the season. He soared past the 100 mark. Now a 108 hitter, and it'll take an O for the rest of this week for him to get back down to 99. He could be down to that. But that Abreu is going to be a good, solid contributor. It's extremely unlikely. But he batted eighth, and he's going to remain toward the end of the lineup. So the imperatives for the Astros offense, which is fifth in the league, fifth in the American League in runs scored per game, but erratic. You'd rather score 6 runs one game and 6 runs the next game. You have a better chance of winning 2 games that way than scoring 2 runs one night and then 10 the next night. Hey, we're still averaging 6 runs per game. Yeah, well, they lost 3-2 in that first game to Seattle. Jordan has to be a run producer, and Bregman has to come out of this season-long coma. Right? Alex Bregman belongs in the minor leagues the way he's played so far this season. You're not going to send him down. You can't send him down even if you wanted to. But he's hitting 206 with a 590 OPS, and he's in the cleanup spot every night.
Right.
So the Jordan Bregman exacta has to pay off more than whatever Abreu is doing, batting 7th or 8th in terms of importance to the Astros' viability.
Okay, so you hit on something really important there, and I've seen it in the comment section here. Is Bregman hitting in the cleanup spot? I know there was some rumored drama that went on behind the scenes when Breggy got moved out of the cleanup, got moved down in the order a little earlier in the season, a few weeks back. He gets moved down, starts producing, then immediately gets moved back up, and then ceases production again. We don't know the truth of what happened behind the scenes. What we've heard is, and again, this is, this came, I feel more comfortable about talking about this because this came from the Astros flagship. And so I feel a little bit more comfortable not just spreading rumor and innuendo, but the word was Alex Bregman wasn't happy about how it was communicated to him, whether it was the how more than the actual act of being pushed down the lineup or whatever the case was. But there was some discord that happened regarding him being moved down. Is this maybe a indication of a young manager in Joe Espada and that he's maybe gun shy to move Breggy down again? And maybe the same with Jordan, where maybe these guys play their dictates moving them down, but especially after the friction that was reported happening behind the scenes with the first move, is Espada now gun shy to make another similar move?
Well, there's certainly a substantial difference being the bench coach, and you can be a player liaison, and you don't have to make any difficult decisions that might step on delicate male egos or cost guys playing time. Right? Moving over to that manager's chair. But this is the same core of players that was hip, hip, hooray for naming Joe Espada the manager. I don't think they were endorsing Joe Espada because they thought they could walk all over him. Shorter answer, play better. Again, it's all second or third hand stuff. If Bregman got bent out of shape, if Joe Espada texted him, was that a faux pas by Espada as opposed to calling him into his office and saying, I'm going to drop you down for a couple of days, see how it goes? I mean, it actually woke Bregman up a little up, but whatever the ends justified the means, and he's back in the cleanup spot and right back to sleep in the batter's box. In Jordan's case, it's not as if he's hitting 205, right? Jordan's actually hit 300 over the last 3 weeks, but a lot of empty calories in there, and he continues to just be very lousy in the runners and scoring position spots. And then you get to, certainly in Jordan's case, who would you want to move ahead of Jordan in this lineup? Nobody who's below him. In Bregman's case, the way he's played so far this season, the answer is, well, basically everybody. But are you going to make Jake Myers your cleanup hitter? Right? Pena in a limited stint did all right. If you wanted to move him back there, I'd be fine with that. Abreu, no. Yainer Diaz, no. Chas McCormick, no. So they're playing a little short stack in terms of who should be the number 4 hitter. So again, I think it's just casting hope on Bregman and that whole back of his baseball card thing. Reminder, from 2020 until now, Alex Bregman's a sub 260 hitter. Right? He's not been an elite player for going on 5 years now, but he's certainly been a good player. 2021, 22, 23, a very good player the last couple of years. He's never been this bad this long. Right? This is a guy who started his career 1 for 34 and figured it out pretty quickly after that. 2017, he was excellent. 2018, he was awesome. 2019, he was off the charts, MVP runner-up. He's not been close to that guy in going on half a decade now, right? He's 30. Maybe there's been some flat-out slippage in his skills. Also, Bregman, when he hit the 41 home runs in 2019, that was the juiced ball year. Right? Bregman hasn't topped 25 since then. Right? He hadn't hit over 270 since then. But he's never been this bad for this long. So you keep waiting. And so he has the 2 games over which he hits 3 home runs and Breggy's back. No, those were the blips on the radar. The overall radar this season, it's just really, really troubling. I don't think Dubon is a worthy everyday third baseman, but you just ride it out all year if Bregman's going to hit 2-0 something with an OPS around 600 because that's where he is. And we're 1/3 of the way into this thing.
Your best guess. How does this play out with Abreu? Is Abreu still on the team at the end of this season?
I'm going to say no. That he'll get some playing time, have a moment here, a moment there, but not enough to justify regular playing time. I mean, they do from the sides of the plate have the natural platoon setup if it's to be Singleton against righties, Abreu against lefties. Awful case scenario. The Astros fade and they're out of it. I think you probably just set Abreu free at the end of August before you tweak your roster some, call up a couple of guys for looks in September. And I would say as they sent out Joey Loperfido, which I understood for the circumstances, since all he was doing was collecting splinters on the bench, what happened to we didn't call him up here to sit. And the guy hits over 300. Yeah, a bunch of strikeouts, but he hit over 300 and he gets 1 start the last 8-9 days that he was here. So carry Gray Kessinger, who never plays, fine. Let him just sit on the bench. Let Loperfido go get every day at bats. He should be playing first base there because Abreu is obviously not the future. Singleton's obviously not the future. There's no other prospect in the organization that matters at the position. Right? That should be Loperfido's path. Even though he's an athletic, good-looking outfielder, you have Tucker, well, for at least 1 more year. Jacob Melton's their supposed number 1 prospect. You still have Jordan as a part-timer in left field. Which way is the pendulum going to swing on Chas McCormick going forward? Maybe Pedro Leon gets a look. Right? There's a little bit of a logjam, at least of alternatives in the outfield. At first base, a whole lot of not much. Right? Loperfido should play at first base at Sugarland because if Abreu flames again, Loperfido should be coming up and playing first base. right? Singleton, again, good for what one would have reasonably hoped for or expected from Singleton, but he's a low 700s OPS guy. He's a low 200s batting average guy. Loperfido's ceiling is obviously higher than that.
It is higher than that. And they did say that they brought him up to play him and not to sit him. And then they sat him for a week against right-handed pitching, no less, which raises the question, why do you think Joe Espada didn't play him? And the reason why I ask is, do you think there's an outside chance that maybe they were afraid of Loperfido's success, creating more friction because they knew, I mean, by all indications, and look, I don't know anything, obviously, that goes for a lot of things, but I don't know anything specifically in this situation, but this looked, Abreu's return, again, I said it already, it looked preordained. It looked like there was an agreement because he had to agree to go down. So it looked like there was agreement that may have been a timetable that was predetermined that said, we're going to send you down for 4 weeks or whatever it was, and we'll bring you back on this date regardless, and we'll let you, wind back up and get a few ABs, and then you're right back on the team and see how you feel then and take it from there. So if Joe Espada knew, or maybe Dana Brown knew, that there's going to be an eventual return by Jose Abreu, we know. I think the fact that they brought him back on the road, I think, is an indication of, what the team thought about bringing Jose Abreu back in front of the home crowd, even against this dominant pitching from Seattle, which is, again, another mystery of why you'd bring him back here if it weren't just about a timetable. So do you think there's a possibility? You see what I'm getting at, right? Is there a possibility that they, sandbag Loperfido to prevent there being more friction or more fan outcry to see Loperfido over Abreu?
I get your point, but no, I think where the Astros are, they should have been delighted to have such friction of playing a guy who might stanch the playing opportunity for Abreu. Clearly, there's no indication that Abreu stepped on the gas, but business is business. He could tell the Astros, well, I'm not injured. I agreed to go to the minors for this period of time. Now you need to have me back on the big league roster or release me, pay me off all my money, and I'll see if I can go find work elsewhere. I think there were a couple complicating factors that Espada had to work with. Right, timing isn't everything in life, but it damn sure matters. Chas McCormick returns. Right, they want to try to get Chas McCormick playing time to get him back to 2023 Chas, because McCormick was lousy before he went to the IL. He's not looked good in a couple of games since coming back, but they don't want to kick him to the curb. Mauricio Dubon swinging the bat very well, so they wanted to get him a start here and there in the outfield. He even had one at first base the other day, and Loperfido wound up the odd man out. But, it's not a young man's game, but it's about blossoming young talent, be given an opportunity. And 24-year-old, who's the better bet for this season, for next season, from now to Kingdom Come? Joey Loperfido or Jose Abreu? I think it's a pretty easy answer. So to me, Loperfido would have been already be playing some first base. And if he succeeded, then I could have greased the skids for you to make the call to release Jose Abreu, swallow hard, pay him the money, and then just hope like hell he doesn't sign with the Mariners or someone and come back and bite you in the butt. I'd have happily taken my chances with that if Loperfido had been playing first base and playing well.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, Loperfido is definitely the sure bet between the two, but he's not a sure bet himself. And we really still haven't seen a large enough sample size to even know what he is. But in the sample size we saw, he certainly was more productive than what we've seen in a larger sample size for Jose Abreu over the last 2 seasons. So I do find the use or lack thereof of Joey while he was up the big league roster very puzzling, but this season's been puzzling for many, many reasons, the answers to which I don't think we're going to get tonight. But I do appreciate everybody being up while everyone's here right now. Before you all go, just hit like on the video. We do appreciate it. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. It is late in Houston, so everybody who's up watching us with us right now, that's really awesome. I appreciate it. I appreciate Charlie staying up. He's got jury duty tomorrow. So good luck with that. You're going to be a wreck for whoever's case you're sitting in on. So if you listen on podcast, make sure and you enjoy the show, make sure you give us a 5-star rating. Charlie, Josh, and I will be back with you next week. Josh and I will probably have a drop-in episode. So make sure you're subscribed to Sports Map Houston and Sports Map Texans on YouTube so that you get all of our work. Again, thanks to all the commenters. Thanks for everybody who's watching and listening on podcast. And as always, go Astros.